Hello, everyone. Welcome back into the LFC Transfer Room. I am Jack, joined today by Anthony and Jay, soon to be joined as well by Louis when he joins us in just a few moments. The headline of today's stream, Sadio Mane wanting £400,000 a week to stay with Liverpool beyond this coming season and beyond the summer transfer window. We have a lot of that and more. But Anthony, my friend, how are you doing today?
Doing very well. Obviously, Nunez joining us soon. Couldn't be happier, mate. How are you doing as well?
I'm doing great. I sound probably a little nasally, a little under the weather, but I'm doing great otherwise. Jay, how are you doing?
All good, mate. Very good. Like Andy just said, it's good that we're making some serious signings.
The individual signing of Nunez is all but confirmed. Benfica late last night UK time, mentioning that the deal for 75 million euros with an additional 25 million in additional add-ons is done. So now we're just waiting for the medical to be finished and the deal to be announced, and that should be tomorrow, next few days. So make sure you subscribe for that and a lot more. Turn on those notifications, like the video, comment, all the stuff, get all the engagement going. The title of the stream is about Sadio Mane, though, a man who is going to be departing to make room for Darwin Nunez in terms of the financial side of things. Let's talk about that figure, the £400,000 a week, Anthony. Is that just a non-starter when he's asking for that much money?
You know what? I think I'm one of the very few who thinks Mane and Salah kind of, I wouldn't say deserve that money, but just pay them what they want. I think at this moment in time, it's a bit like, oh no, it's too much money. But like taking a step back, these guys are all-time Premier League great. Salah's probably the best winger in Premier League history, and Mane is definitely up in that conversation as well. So I think if they're seeing the likes of Ronaldo earning 700k, Grealish 400k, I think it's not unfair to be asking for that sort of money as well. And I think all for what they've done for the club, I'd pay up. But obviously, if we're using Mane's money to pay for Nunez as well, I don't really have an issue with him leaving. I know he's my favourite player and all, but 40 million, that's a lot of money. So, especially with 1 year left on his contract. So, might as well fund Nunez with that.
And Jay, when you see £400,000 a week, is that a non-starter for you? I guess I'll give you the same question I asked for Anthony.
No, it's too much for me, mate. He only turns up after January. Let's not forget, like last season, he weren't great. The beginning of this season, he was scoring goals, but he weren't playing great. He's approaching 30. And if we were to give him 400k and Salah 400k, you're talking there 4 million a month on just them two. Over a year, that's 50 million for two players. I also think if you take Mane out the side or Salah out the side, the impact isn't as big as if Van Dijk's not in the side or Alisson or Trent. So they're all going to want 400 grand, and then where does the line end if you start handing them contracts out? So no, I wouldn't give him 400k to be honest.
It's an interesting comment from Dean here. Make sure you get your comments and your thoughts on the Mane contract and everything around it, saying, none of them are worth that to us as Liverpool, but to a club that could pay it, maybe they are worth it. So my question then would be, what player is worth that for us? When you look at all the players around world football, are we always just going to be losing these guys towards the end of their contracts? Or what player for you, Jay, could demand that kind of money and you would pay up for that?
In world football?
Liverpool or world football?
So I think 400 grand a week's a joke for anyone, but people are getting paid them figures now. So if I was to give someone that type of money at Liverpool, it'd probably be Van Dijk, and I think Salah's got an argument that he could probably get it as well. The reason I said no to Mane is because before January, I didn't think he was great, in the season before that he was really not good. So I think at least Salah's had the consistency of goals every season that he can argue the point of 400k. So in our team, I think Salah, Van Dijk can argue it, and outside of Liverpool, I'd take Kevin De Bruyne tomorrow.
Yeah, and Anthony, for you, who you said you would pay for Mane and Salah. When you kind of step away from your own perception to the club, who do you think, if you had to put yourself in Julian Ward's and Liverpool's shoes, who would you imagine them actually springing that kind of cash for? Or is it always going to be that Liverpool is not the financial endpoint for players? They have to go elsewhere for
Uh, it's tough because you're not just going to break your wage structure just for one player or two players, realistically. So in the future, it'll probably take some getting used to for the club to change their wage structure. But I think, like Jay said, probably Van Dijk, and maybe you could throw in Alisson. I don't think he was unbelievable last season, but he's definitely made an impact and one of the best probably the best goalkeeper in the world. at the moment. But same with Salah. I think he's definitely deserved it. He's been our top scorer ever since he joined the club every single season. And I know Mane wasn't great last season, but I still think this is a player who constantly gets 20 plus goals a season, and it sounds easy to replace, but it's not. And I know people are saying the same with Salah. Let's sell him. I'd generally rather see these players leave for free than or Salah in particular leave for free than to sell him this season.
And you bring up an interesting point there, Anthony, about the leaving for free or versus selling them now. There's been the back and forth between Bayern and Liverpool on the fee for Sadio Mane, them offering £25 million, part of that being Mane, an add-on being that Mane had to win 3 consecutive Ballon d'Ors alongside winning 3 consecutive Champions Leagues. Anthony, he's your favorite player, but I think even you could agree, unrealistic. You know, when you kind of look at what kind of price do you think is not enough this summer for Mane versus maybe you say, all right, I can bite the bullet, we'll just let him go for free and also have him alongside Darwin Nunez.
I don't think. I mean, Bayern offering stupid amounts, like you just said. They wanted to win 3 Ballon d'Ors to give us a few extra million. Like they're idiots. But I think 40 is probably fair. I know Hazard went for 100 million to Real Madrid when he only had 1 year left on his contract, and it's not. I know that they're trying to compare it to Thiago's deal when he came to Liverpool, but it's not the same. This is a guy who's getting, like I said, 20 plus goals every season, and in the Bundesliga, he's probably going to be getting more than that, and he could play across the front three. He could play up front, on the right wing, on the left wing, and he's still got a few years left in him to play at a world class level. So I'll say 40 is fair, but the 20 million and extra 6 million for 3 Ballon d'Ors is a joke.
Yeah, and Jay, you know, the Bayern seem like the only side that's in for Mane right now. But if they try and use that as a hardball spot where they're saying you either give him to us and accept our lower offer, where did you kind of land in that awkward balance of not overpricing Mane, not pushing Bayern away and finding a buyer for him, but also kind of where do you kind of find that balancing act for you, Jay?
I think it's one of them. Even if you push Bayern away, if Sadio Mane is adamant he wants to leave, he's going to have shooters. He's one of the best forwards in the world, in normal form. And come the end of last season, to be fair, he was probably in the best goal scoring form of anyone in the league. I think he scores 11 and 12, so he's goal a game basically. The thing about comparing it to the Thiago deal, I've spoken about this before on here. It's completely different. Forwards earn more money because they're the ones who get goals. Midfielders don't. It's always the way it's been. Defenders don't win Ballon d'Ors. I'm not saying they shouldn't. It's just the way it is. And it's exactly the same with Mane. At the end of the day, the main thing in football is scoring goals, and players who guarantee that get paid more money and they cost more money. Therefore, you can't really compare it to Thiago because he brings goals and that costs more money than a midfielder. So that's why I don't think it can really be compared.
It makes you think of one of my favorite little graphics that I've seen where it was a football pitch. The defensive third was players defend here. The attacking third was players attack here. And the middle third was just some squiggly lines saying the ball just kind of magically goes in between them. You pay the premium for the forwards.
Exactly.
But we have our 4th member of the stream joining us. Louis, first of all, how are you doing today, my friend? And the Mane news, I guess kind of your early impressions of that.
I'm good, thank you. Yep, thank you very much. Hope everybody else is doing okay and looking forward to the quiz on Friday. Should be a good laugh. Yeah, I mean, we all knew he was asking for some high figures, and if 400k is true, then you know, I put a poll up on the community section of the channel asking what people would like us to do with Salah and Mane. So make sure that you do go and vote on that as well. Would you like us to sell him, sell Salah, sell both, or keep both this season and let them go next year? Plenty of choices. But it's a lot of money, isn't it? I think someone worked it out. It adds up to like 80-something million over the course of a year. And, you know, that at the moment would get us Jude Bellingham. So would you want that on a over 30 Sadio Mane, who's definitely past his peak? I'd say you could say he's still very good, but I'd say he's definitely past his peak. He's not gonna turn into a fine wine. He's on his way down, kind of thing. How slow that is, we don't know, but you know, it fits into our system. You know, we signed him when he was mid-20s, like 25, 26.
I'll check for
something
you.
like that. We got him at a relatively good deal. Got him to. This must be his second contract that he's on now, isn't it? And now he's turning 30. So really, this works, and this is time to sell him. The only reason it's difficult is because he is one of the best players in the world, and that's why it's such a difficult scenario. But I'm happy for him to go, and I don't think we should get anywhere close to 400,000 if we were to try and keep him.
Yeah, and we signed him when he was 24. Signed a contract, and I believe it was 2018. Similar time to when Salah signed his. They're 5-year contracts. They took him, till 2023, summer of 2023. Him, Firmino, and Salah all being up. And to kind of answer this question from Adam, the 80 million pound figure that Louis briefly mentioned, I'll read the full tweet from the Anfield Talk on Twitter, but the news is from David Matty saying that Sadio Mane was asking for close to £400,000 a week for a 4-year deal to stay with Liverpool, which would work out at a total, which would include bonuses, of around £83 million over the lifetime of that deal, which, I mean, that's Jude Bellingham right there. Of course, you have to pay his wages as well, but that was an interesting one. I think we have to factor into the Mane discussion is that what he's currently making, which is less than Oxlade-Chamberlain, less than James Milner. It's not a lot of money compared to a lot of players. It is, and Jay, I'll go to you with this one. Would I guess what went wrong with this? Was this an inevitable situation that it was always going to be leaving after this contract, or could there have been a move made in 2019, 2020 to kind of offer him a push up the scale in terms of pay, or was it always going to be kind of the end goal of leaving in 2023?
I'm not sure. I wish there was a bit more dialogue from Mane rather than the stuff he's been saying in Senegal or Africa, wherever it is he's playing at the minute. He said after the Champions League he'd let everyone know what his thoughts were and what he was going to do, and he hasn't addressed our fans at all, which has annoyed me a little bit. I can completely understand if he feels underappreciated, because how players like Oxlade-Chamberlain, I think Milner was earning more than him, Keita, you look at some of them players that are earning a lot more than him and you think some of you don't even get minutes, so you can be earning more than one of our key players who was the start off really of this whole Klopp era. He was the first major signing who probably got his top 4 as well. If he feels aggrieved by that, I can completely understand why, and we probably should have renewed his contract last season or the season before that, and he's probably sick of hearing every week Salah contract. No one seemed to be asked about Mane's contract till Bayern Munich have started flirting with him, so I can understand why he'd want to go, and he has won everything. It might just be a case of, I've won the lot, so I want a new challenge, which is fair enough. But both reasons are fair enough, to be honest.
It is an interesting one, freshening things up. You always have that comparison to Sir Alex Ferguson's time at Manchester United, always chopping and changing his side, not having a ton of consistency over the years, just to keep things fresh. And I guess, Louis, I'll toss it to you. The chat is interested in what you're eating, so I think that'll be the first part that we're wondering. But secondly, I posed this to Anthony earlier as well about where does the balance lie in terms of how much you'd accept this summer versus letting him walk for free in a year, considering that negotiations between Bayern and Liverpool have been kind of stagnant a little bit. The food first, though, Louis.
Just a simple paella, very, very tasty, and thank you everybody who's interested. Never thought I'd be sharing that on the internet. Again, this is why I put that poll out, because I'm, what could, coming so close to a quadruple, which is priceless, in my opinion. You can't put any kind of price on that. We've brought in reinforcements in attack. Nunez, Diaz still counts. Carvalho can play there. I know it's cramped. I know people are going to struggle for minutes, but imagine having all of them, including Salah and Mane still. It would be more possible than ever. It would be more possible to do a quadruple next season than it would this season. And I know we're getting into very fantasy land territory, but even just the league and the Champions League, the resources we're going to need to overcome Man City, who are going to be just as good, plus Erling Haaland and plus Alvarez, plus 2 actual out-and-out strikers, and whoever else they decide to bring in. 40 million compared to 1 or 2 years ago, seems like bugger all for Sadio Mane. And I know it's changed by the fact he's only got a year left and he is turning 30, not had the best season of his career. So for the sake of £40 million, I'd be more than happy to just keep him on for another year and let him go for free. I really do believe that. I think we're going to make plenty of dosh from the players we're going to let go anyway. Minamino, 17 million. That's basically half of it already sorted. I think someone else mentioned some fees for loan players or like loan to buy obligations, and so we're going to get plenty there. But yeah, for me personally, I'll be more than happy to keep him if he was happy with that. But this is where it all gets quite awkward with that stuff that the Bayern Munich sporting director said. He could find himself kind of stuck in no man's land, because it's very clear he wants to leave, he wants to move on. But if they decide that he's not worth the 40 million and they go for another option, where does that leave him? Because Real Madrid have done a fair bit of business. PSG have tied their hands in the transfer market. Barcelona are in a mess. There's not many other places that he could go at a top level.
I want to ask the poll to everyone in here. If you go to the transfer page, the community tab, you can see the poll, which asks of the 4 options, what would you do with Mane and Salah? Would you keep both, let both walk for free next year? Would you sell one or the other? Sell both? Anthony, you mentioned that your Mane is one of your favorite players. You want him a lot. What is your decision in terms of those 2 forwards and what you do this summer, with the also thought in mind that you're spending £65 million on Darwin Nunez right now?
I think keep both. I know Louis brought up a good point. We're making player sales throughout the squad anyway. Chamberlain probably going to leave. Minamino already 17 million from him. Nat Phillips. I'm sure there's a few more. I just can't remember them. But there's not really a need to sell him to kind of afford Nunez. I think we've definitely gone past the point where we need to sell players to actually buy them, and the club have a transfer kitty beforehand anyway. So whether that's being used for Nunez, we've obviously already signed Carvalho, and have we signed Ramsey? I don't want to get it wrong.
That's an interesting one. We'll talk about that in a bit. But yeah, sorry, Anthony, to interrupt you.
For 7 million or something for Carvalho anyway. So we should have enough to afford Nunez without having to sell Mane or any more players in the squad. But it'll be nice to have. Imagine 6 top-class forwards in the squad. Diaz, Salah, Firmino, Jota, Mane. Who's the other one? Firmino? I just know my mind's gone blank. But it'll be incredible. And like Louis said, we could probably have a better chance of winning the quadruple this season than the last one.
I want to ask you that though. Is Mane versus, say, a midfielder? Maybe not a Jude Bellingham. Let's go halfway. I don't even know who the halfway option from Bellingham is. Just half of Jude Bellingham. Like just cut Jude Bellingham in half and you stick it to him in the midfield. Mane versus him. Who gives you a better chance of winning those trophies? Because can Mane and Nunez coexist? That kind of debate.
It's a midfielder. I was confused as to why we signed Nunez over a midfielder in the first place, to be honest. I think we were really bad in that midfield last season. I think we've got a very sort of mid-table midfield. If you take into account Thiago gets injured a lot, Keita gets injured a lot, and Fabinho, he's sometimes injured as well. So we needed Tchouaméni, but obviously he's chosen his dream move to Real Madrid. And Bellingham's the next option. There's not really many out there like him. We could go for Gavi, but I think it looks likely he'll sign a new contract with Barcelona. So who knows? I hope we get Bellingham, but who knows? One can dream.
It's an interesting debate, and I think maybe the Nunez news is being held down based on Mane leaving. Can it be possible for you, Jay, for Mane and Nunez to coexist, just simply from the fact that the midfielder is also needed?
Well, yes, Mane can play anywhere across the front three, but the problem is, how are you going to keep all them players happy if Mane stays? It's hard enough to get Firmino and Jota in the team, and I've got to be honest, I felt sly on Jota last season because he carried us in the AFCON when Mane and Salah were gone. He was the one scoring all the goals. Diaz come in, and as brilliant as Diaz was, Jota just sort of got left to the side a bit then. And if I was him, I'd be pissed off, to be honest. So you're talking about adding Nunez to what we already had last year, which in my book was probably the best attacking line in Europe, arguably. Adding to that, how's anyone getting minutes? I agree with Anthony. I was really surprised that we went all out for Nunez and not a midfielder. Because I think we're crying for a midfielder, to be honest. But yeah, I think they can coexist, but I wouldn't do it. Where the people playing games? How are you keeping that bunch happy?
Could you play Mane as a 10 in a 4-2-3-1 with a pivot of Fabinho and Thiago? That's how I would see that minutes go for me.
Yeah, I think you could, but you could probably do that with Firmino and Jota as well. Jota's link-up play isn't as good, obviously, as Firmino, but Mane's isn't great. I just think if you've got players in that 10-man with front four roles, all them players we've got can do a job. They're all very versatile players. That's why Klopp brought them in. I just think that many top-class strikers, you're not keeping the group happy. There's no way. It's hard enough to give minutes now, so I think it'd be stupid.
And it's also a case of flow, you know. You need minutes to get into a rhythm. I think Mane and Nunez, I don't think they can coexist in an 11. I don't think they have. I don't see. I saw some, you know, deep block sides for Liverpool to play, which had Nunez and Jota up top. And I looked at those in fear if we have a lineup like that next season, because our issue was never, you know, just dropping them into the box and getting chances in the 18. It's how do we get them in there? We're trying to put crosses in against defenders who are just bigger. I don't see us moving away from the 4-3-3 with Mane still in that 11. I think Nunez would just kind of be that leading guy up front or off on the left. So I don't know. It's an interesting one. But I guess then we've kind of touched on it a little bit. Is there an alternative from Jude Bellingham in that midfield? Because it feels like we've kind of cornered ourselves a bit. Gavi or Bellingham. And the issue is one is more attainable financial-wise, but probably going to stay. And Bellingham's going to be very pricey. Does anybody have an alternative?
It depends what kind of midfielder we're looking for. I can't remember who said it. I think Carter says that we need a number 6 as opposed to an 8. And I guess that does just come down to what you think we're going to be doing next season. A lot of people think a 4-2-4 or 4-2-3-1, a similar sort of thing. And we need someone to cover Fabinho. For that role, I'd look at Ibrahim Sangar. He's £21 million, I believe we can get him for. I've done a player analysis of him, which will be going up on the channel within the next week or two, so stay tuned for that. He's got that ability about him to read play. He likes to be behind the ball when we're in possession as well, so that suits him rather than playing as one of the 8s who tend to get further forward. So that would be my vote. I think Klopp will prioritise someone who could fill in as a 6 as opposed to an 8, because, as Carter says again, we've got Carvalho and Elliott, and we've got Jones still as well. Players who can fill in and easily improve in those positions as well.
I think Carter and I have had we had a spat about Henderson all the way back in last summer. He wanted Ruben Loftus-Cheek. He said he was better than Henderson. This is when Henderson was getting a new deal. So this has been a long fought battle, but I don't disagree that I think Henderson is. I'm the opposite of you, Louis. Actually, I think Henderson could be that backup for Fabinho. I think he's been solid as a backup 6, not in matches where it's going to be wide open against a deeper block where he can kind of has a bit more time to pick out his passes. I think we need someone who can dribble in the midfield. Look at why City break down low blocks, because you have De Bruyne, you have Silva, you have Grealish, you have Gundogan, who all from the midfield can dribble and can create from there. That's what's helped them against low blocks. They can just create those opportunities from the middle of the pitch, versus we can't really do that. But I don't know who offers that except for Gavi or Bellingham, and I don't really know which ones were there. And Jay, someone had mentioned a bit of reference to your Dream Summer video that you did a couple of days back. So make sure you go check that out on the channel. I was watching that a little bit before getting on the stream today. You know, for you, kind of a brief, don't spoil the entire video, but for you, Jay, what made sense in terms of the acquisitions for Liverpool this summer?
We need a midfielder that can come straight into the team, not just the squad. We need one who can be in the starting 11. I love some of our midfielders for being on. It's brilliant. Thiago's brilliant, but I think every single one of our midfielders are injury prone. All of them. They all pick up knocks throughout the season. And the thing for me is, I know loads of people were talking about Calvin Phillips. He doesn't bring anything new to what we already have. like the lads have already said, we need a creative midfielder, someone who's got that killer pass. I think Carvalho might be able to do that job in the 10, to be honest. But that's all might, ifs and buts. He's still a young kid. I think you need a midfielder who's ready-made, who can play that killer pass and can unlock a defence with just a little, like what Coutinho used to do. He could beat a man and then play the perfect ball. That's what we need. We need someone who can come straight into the team and be the creative influence for us, other than just Thiago. Because if he doesn't play, there's no one in the midfield that creates anything, to be honest.
Anthony, when you mentioned Calvin Phillips, you kind of had like a grimace on your face. I want to get your perception on him and the midfield options.
Like Jay, I don't understand why we're linked with these sort of players, man. Honestly, it's always this mid-table sort of quality. Like we need more Tchouaméni links, sort of players like him, man. But Bellingham's the only one. Honestly, we need a box-to-box midfielder, someone who is willing to do the defensive work and willing to do the offensive work, but actually has quality. I'm so sick and tired of Henderson. Honestly, he's rubbish. I think he's good as for team morale, whatever. But I hear he's calm. He brings calmness to the side. But that's just a myth. We haven't won a single match against the big top four this season. We lost Champions League final. There was no actual quality in the midfield. It was just sideways passes and backwards passes to Trent. But we just need that midfielder who's creative enough, like Coutinho was for us. And I think I'd argue we need two new midfielders, one for Fabinho cover, so to give him some rest towards the end of the season. He weren't looking too good, and one to actually come in and make their mark. But I'm still hopeful that could be Navigator. To be honest, I know he's had his injury problems, but I'm just a big fan of him. But we definitely need another midfielder who can take a starting place.
My fandom and protection of Naby Keita is on life support right now after that Champions League final. I think right after it, I was pretty harsh on him. I mean, if my parents both played that match, I've been pretty harsh on them too after that. But I'm fascinated with what happens because, and Jay had mentioned it, the injury problems in the midfield. Fabinho isn't impervious to them. I mean, it's hard to be completely impervious. And Thiago, Keita, all of them are kind of, they have their problems. I think Bellingham would be perfect as well, but I just don't see how we get him this summer, to be quite honest. I guess for Louis, I want to hit on that Sangare link as well, really quick. What would you see kind of Liverpool's 11 looking like next year if he was brought in? Because he's not a guy who breaks into the midfield. Is Henderson still a starter next year for you, or are you bringing Keita in the 11, signing him onto a new contract? For you, where does that kind of move around?
It's the same as the season just gone. The most interesting part is that midfield three. Just assuming that that's who we stick with. As Jay said, there's certain players in there who like to pick up the odd knock here and there. Again, we've signed so many players who, at their previous clubs, played a lot with or in a double pivot, and Sangare is the same as that. And there's a bit of a link there, but nothing concrete yet. So that's again why I think if we get the right players, he might look to switch to that double pivot instead, and it frees up another attacker. And we're so high up the pitch anyway. Alisson's almost at the halfway line. Van Dijk, Matip, Konate are fantastic on the ball, winning aerial duels, ground duels. Our offside trap is so brilliant. So we almost don't need to worry about having that third midfielder in there because we're so compact and well drilled as a defensive unit. So I feel like we can sacrifice this idea of a third purely creative midfielder in exchange for having a front four, which we've done a lot this season. Whatever way you look at it, whether it's a 4-2-3-1 or a 4-2-4, it's the same kind of principle, and it's going to be fluid either way because we know, we can see it already. Nunez, a lot of people have pointed out he likes to move over to the left a lot. He starts centrally, moves left, cuts back in again. Luis Diaz is a left winger. Mane is a left winger. There's obviously going to be some sort of interchange there. It's obviously planned out. It's not a weakness. The same sort of triangles that we've seen on that right-hand side as well. So the answer to your question is I don't know. I think it's incredibly exciting, and we really are going to have to just hold our horses and see what happens.
Every time I've seen a comment like this, they occasionally come into the stream. I'm like, I just dismiss it offhand. But now I'm kind of thinking about this. You know, a player who can kind of dribble a little bit, defensive support, can really create. He could be already in the club. Why don't we try Trent in the midfield in that right-hand side 8 position? And hear me out. He's showing a bit more ability to step into that half space. If you put Joe Gomez at right back, you allow basically almost a back 3, and you have Robertson is able to have free reign to overlap on the left. And you get to see more of those Trent lasers from midfield.
I don't want to see him.
Who's backing me? Who's backing me on this?
No, I can't, mate. You got the most assistant, but like more assistant midfielders, and that's playing areas. Klopp's even said, "Why would you move the best right back in the world into another position?"
I feel
then
like
if we did move him, go on. Sorry, Lou.
I feel like it's based on the assumption that still a right back is less important, which maybe was the case 5-10 years ago. But similar to the way Firmino revolutionized the false 9, Trent has revolutionized, you know, this new generation, you know, Trent, Kimmich, Reece James, João Cancelo, they've almost revolutionized that right back position. And it's so important to how all 3 of those teams operate, the output that they're able to deliver from that position. You know, a lot of people want to make the argument that either James or Cancelo are better, but you don't really see many conversations for either of them to start in midfield either, when Cancelo is an inverted fullback and does play quite centrally a lot of the time. For me, I'd prefer Trent to get a little bit wider sometimes. I think towards the end of the season, he was playing in that half space so often that his crosses became incredibly predictable. And we start to sort of see a little bit of a drop-off in his output. I'd like to see a bit more variety in his game again. I'd like to see him get to the byline a few more times and just whip a ball in rather than trying to dink one over the top all the time, because I felt like it became quite predictable.
It was almost a lack of other options. I'm just thinking, like, let's try in preseason. I want to see it once in preseason. I can hate it, but I don't know if you can watch the spaces Henderson picks up in that right-handed 8 spot and not think, if that's Trent who picks that ball up right there, that something real good could happen.
Henderson should be in those positions, or like if you're a midfielder, you don't see Thiago playing on the left wing. That's why I have an issue with Henderson playing in that midfield, in the right side of the midfield. Anyway, I don't think he does his job properly. But with Trent, it's like he sort of goes into the middle, like Lou was saying. He goes into the middle anyway, but maybe aesthetically he looks like he can play in the midfield, but there's just no need to move his position. He's the best right back in the world, and it's been working up until this point, so there's no need to change it.
Yeah, I that's the exact point I agree with. Jay, I think you were going to jump in there.
I was always going to say, if we did move him into the midfield, we'd need another right back. I don't think you could put Gomez right back for the full season. So it's one of them. You either get a midfielder or you're going to put Trent there and then you need a right back. So either way, you need to play to come in. But I know what you mean if Arnold was where Henderson is on the right, because I'm with Anthony. I can't stand it when I see Henderson go wide right, trying to overlap with Salah, because you know that delivery from Henderson's going nowhere. It's the same thing constantly. Like every time I see Henderson drift out wide, I think this is going to boil down to nothing now unless he gives it back to Trent. So I see what you mean.
We saw Klopp turn Firmino, who was a 10 for Hoffenheim, into a false 9, but more of an advanced guy. In Nkunku, I will admit my ignorance. I'm not 100% familiar with his game and how he played at Leipzig, but he seems like the kind of guy who could be a bit more of an advanced 8. I think that getting a creative guy like that, could we almost look elsewhere and try and target attacking players to drop deeper rather than kind of trying to. I mean, Bellingham's perfect. Gavi is near perfect. So those are the perfect options. When you're looking at the other ones, is Nkunku the guy for you, Jay? Because when you had him in your video, did you have him as a forward or as a potential 10?
He can play the 10 effectively, but he was my choice as a forward. when I say midfielder, we need a midfielder, not a forward who can play 10, 8, 11, 7, 10. We need a midfielder. My position is central midfield. That's where I play. Not, don't get me wrong, if you've got a central midfielder who can fit in somewhere else, great. But I did want Nkunku as my first forward option, and I'd still like him if we sell Salah. But no, I want a proper actual central midfielder.
Carter mentions a guy. He loves these Chelsea loanees, just awkward guys. He says Conor Gallagher in the midfield. There's that. I mentioned this couple weeks ago. A guy I'm a big fan of that I think Klopp could turn into an absolute monster in that right-handed 8 spot as like a shadow striker is Mason Mount. I think that he would be, a step down from Bellingham. I think he could be pretty nice. But I don't know. Maybe I'm in the minority there. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Conor Gallagher as well. It's just hard to talk about it because it's just not on the table really.
Yeah.
It's not a transfer that we could make. But no, Conor Gallagher. I mean, he makes the point perfectly. Henderson, bless him, is starting to get on a little bit. He is starting to lose those yards. He was never the quickest, but he could zip across 5-10 yards pretty quickly to start that counter pressing, and Gini's obviously left. I mean, Gallagher would be, in an ideal world, the perfect replacement to do that, but it's hard to talk about it with much enthusiasm because it's just not something that could happen.
I always love those depth chart graphics, that Liverpool fans make before the season, because then you have guys like Elliott or Milner who are like just in half the squad. When you look at the front line, it's a front three, let's assume. Nunez with Firmino as his backup. Then you got Diaz with Jota as his backup. Salah with who was his backup? Is another forward needed if Mane is going? Because I feel like we're one forward short in that spot, letting 3 forwards go in Minamino, Origi, and Mane, and only signing Nunez. We've mentioned a lot of midfield signings. Is a guy like a Serge Gnabry, a Jared Bowen, Arnaut Danjuma, and Kuku's a bit more pricey, but should there be another forward signed to kind of offer that competition for places?
Would you ask anyone specifically?
You know what? I think if Minamino definitely goes, and same with Mane, then probably we do need another forward, because Origi's obviously left as well. In the cup matches, I don't think we want to be seeing Paul Glatz or Cade Gordon and some random other forward up front for us. But I don't think they need to be top quality. I would take someone like Ivan Toney, to be honest, just someone who will do the job. He'll come in as a sub and do the hard work, but you don't need them to be scoring over 15 plus goals a season. But yeah, if we sell Minamino, then I think we need another forward.
That was an amazing moment when I kind of just tossed the ball up and then like no one wanted to talk. I don't know. It's an interesting one. Let's kind of, as we get towards the back end of the stream on Sadio Mane, we've talked a lot about what needs to happen. I don't know. Did we get everyone's statements on the Mane Salah in that poll? I think, Anthony, you said keep both. What was yours, if I remember correctly?
Yeah.
For you, Jay, Mane Salah, what are they doing?
I do want Salah to stay in an ideal world, but I think it's got to be a case of now Liverpool needs to put a final offer on the table and give a deadline as to when that needs to be signed. And if it's not signed, I'd say 2 weeks before the City game, the Community Shield game. So it'd be around the 15th of July. I'd say if you haven't signed by then, you're on the market. Because it's no good for anyone, mate. Even his interviews now, he's starting to make me dislike him, which I never thought would happen, but he's always talking about how great he is and just do you talking on the pitch. And if you're that asked about staying, the way you keep saying I love the club, I love the fans, tell your agent to shut up and sign the contract then. James Milner's just took a massive pay cut because he wants to play for Liverpool. Now I understand about the different stages of the career and they've both got a different influence on the team. But what Milner's done is shown, I want to be here. And if that means taking a wage cut, then that's what I'll do. Mo Salah's already paid handsomely, has been offered more money, but still wants more money. That's not someone who's dying to stay. And you don't talk about flirting with other teams in the Premier League when my contract goes. That's holding us to ransom. So sign it or go. Like I'm fed up with him, to be honest, mate. I'm fed up with the whole situation. He needs to be told now you've got this deadline to sign it by, or on your bike in a bit.
Louis, for you put out that poll. Were you the first man to vote on that and pick an option? And if you so, what option did you pick?
I think so. We got 76 votes at the minute, so I'll share the results in a moment. But yeah, I said sell Mane, just because that seems like what's going to happen, and I just have this very strong feeling that Salah will bounce back. But I completely get what Jay's saying. I just feel like there's been a massive lack of self-awareness, which I wouldn't have taken Salah to be that kind of guy. Like even now, he's still talking about how he wants to win the Ballon d'Or. But
I saw that.
You've dropped. Your form has dropped massively. You came out and spouted a lot of crap before the Real Madrid game. Some of it was exaggerated and taken out of context. I get that. But then you've gone and dropped a clanger there as well, really. I just don't know how he can. And his agent is making a mockery. I don't know who the agent thinks that who he thinks sees his tweets. It's not FSG. It's not Liverpool's representatives. They're not looking at his tweets thinking, "Oh, he's got us on strings here." It's us fans looking at it, and it's going to boil a lot of piss. That doesn't come across as someone who cares deeply about the club. Obviously, he's got his clients' interests and his own interests at heart. And at the end of the day, that's fair enough. But that's, again, as Jay said, that's not someone who's desperate to pay for the club. That's not someone who completely gets what the club is about or what playing for this club is about. But I still think he'll be sensational. If he stays another year, it'll be a chance for him to audition for wherever he wants to go, whether that's PSG, Madrid, Barcelona. He can sign off with a bang. And I think he is the type of player who would do that. He's not going to want to sit around and wait and just play out his contract for the sake of it. He would want to go out of a bang and try and come away with some trophies, because if he wants to win that Ballon d'Or, he's quickly running out of time. He's getting towards the wrong age of 30 as well, so he can't afford to have a crap season because he doesn't feel like it. He's got to keep on the boil. Mane, on the other hand, I feel like he's waited until the end of the season. He said, sod it, I want one final contract, one final payday, one last challenge, maybe a slightly easier league, I would say, moving to Munich in the Bundesliga, a chance to rack up some trophies for my legacy, to add to AFCON and getting to the World Cup, etc. As long as it gets done quickly, I'm talking within the next week or so, I'm absolutely happy with that. I'm just worried that it may drag on a little bit and more stuff may keep on getting leaked out about like things that he's saying about the club. And, there's been stuff saying he's completely not interested in staying at the club anymore. And the longer that goes on, the more of that's going to come out, and it'll just feel like a little bit of a kick in the teeth, even if it is a little bit out of context.
Thank you, Jen, for the £4.5 and super sticker. It's a very interesting one. You compare this to the channel. His name is LFC Transfer, where we talk about transfers near predominantly. But we haven't really had a summer as interesting as this one since maybe 2018, where there's a chance for such a big reset. I don't know. I'll offer my perspective, I guess, as well. I am of the spot where I think that, Mane, I think, it makes sense for him to go. I don't think his head will be here next year, even if he stays. I don't think him and Nunez can coexist. It'll slow down his development moving to England. I also think Nunez is just better as a proper 9 rather than a false 9. It'll change up the way we play, because we've been going with this 4-3-3 false 9 for a long time. Let's just kind of almost switch that 9, push up the pitch a bit. Offers Salah, Diaz a chance to play a bit differently. But I would sell Mane, is what I would do. And for Salah, even if he doesn't accept a contract, as Jay mentioned, kind of having that ultimatum, signed by now, or leave, I would offer him that ultimatum, but I wouldn't sell him. I wouldn't push him out. If I got a great offer, I might consider it. But I just think that the World Cup factor is a big one for me. He's not going to the World Cup. So for a month and a half, he'll be sat on his couch watching some of the best players in the world playing in front of 1 billion people. And he'll be pissed off, and the only thing he can do is come back and score a ton of goals and make his next employer or us pay him a lot of money. So I think he would be a big factor next year. I want him to be around. And if that's just his last season for Liverpool is 22-23, that's the way it is. But I guess that's just kind of how I view it. Last thoughts before we get out of here. Go ahead, Jay.
No, with that, don't make me saying about watching the World Cup. He's then talking to other clubs already at that point because he can go for free. So it's not like, oh, I'm going to come back and do this, do that. He's going to have offers on the table at that point. He'll have been having discussions a month before it even got to that. Do you know what I mean? So it's not going to be this, oh, he's been rested for 4 weeks. He's going to be talking to clubs already at that point. I have half a clue where he's going. So he's probably going to be thinking, right, don't get injured going to this new club now because these are going to give me X amount a year or a week, whatever. So it's worth bearing that in mind, mate. Like, when people say, like, oh, players care about clubs, they care about money, mate. Until they do something to show they care, like Milner has, I'm not bothered. Like, they only want money.
Yes. It's going to be a fascinating one because, and I have to admit, if I was Salah and I was that supremely talented, I had the same career he had, and I had, £400,000 a week offers from France, from Spain, from Germany, from Italy. I think Milan, with their new ownership, they could be in there with a shout. And then obviously a lot of clubs in England would be up for him. It would be in the back of my mind, obviously. So I can't sit here and be like, how dare you want money when, money is pretty great. So
when they were talking about Premier League rivals, could you imagine if he ends up at Newcastle?
I think that's perfect for him and for Newcastle.
That'd be hilarious.
Because they'd give him $500,000 a week. He would be the face of their kind of revival, and they would love to get a guy like him because he would launch them forward in their trajectory. So
the thing is as well, Salah's trying to do things like women's rights, which would put the Saudis maybe in a better light if they have Salah as their like kind of ambassador to show we're trying to improve this and improve that type of thing. So it could either go one way or the other with that, whether the Saudis agree with him speaking out for women's rights and stuff, or whether they think he could be a good poster boy to show, look, we are trying to improve the human rights issues they've got and things like that.
It's a very interesting one. I want to get kind of our last thoughts on Mane, kind of the next few days. Obviously, we have a lot of streams this week. It's not like this is the last time we'll talk about a lot of these things. But for Anthony, for you, is there a path back for Mane in specific, considering what he's kind of alluded to, the way there's been a lot of rumors about his departure? Is there a path back next season? And kind of what are your last thoughts on today's stream?
I think path back to Liverpool.
I guess so. Yeah.
I don't think he's gone and said horrible stuff about the club. Like Louis said, a few of the quotes him and Salah have been saying have been taken out of context. But it will be a bit weird having that many forwards. The only reason I would keep Mane is because the only reason I would have kept Mane is if we hadn't signed a striker. But we've signed Nunez now, so I wouldn't be against selling Mane. But yeah, I think we're in a very good position. And Salah may even sign a contract this window. I saw a couple of journalists been saying Liverpool insiders are very confident that a deal could be struck. So yeah, who knows? I think we're set up perfectly for next season if we get another midfielder.
Jay, your last thoughts on the Mane news that we had today, and just I guess transfers in general.
Just to make it clear as well, I do want to offer a new contract, and all might sound like I don't to do. I'm just sick of the whole drama of it, that's all. With Mane, yeah, I would sell him, but I don't think it's come to a point where if he had to stay, it's gone too far that he can't stay. Yeah, I think he's a legend. The fans love him. If he stays another year, great. If he stays longer, even better. Like, I don't think anybody's going to have a problem with that. So yeah, I would sell him, but if it comes to a point he can stay and is happy to stay, then yeah, it hasn't come to a point where I don't think he could come back by any means now. I think most people would be happy.
Louis, for you, the Mane news, general transfer news, last thoughts this evening?
Yeah, the same way it's been going. Keep Salah, sell Mane. Just going back, we put a couple of polls out. The first one, will Darwin Nunez be an instant success or take him time to bed in? We had 160 votes. This was a few hours ago. 74% think he'll be an instant success. So the weight of expectation is already upon him. But for this stream specifically, recapping the futures of Mo Salah and Sadio Mane, what would you prefer this summer? 51% have agreed with most of us and said sell Mane. 11% would sell just Salah. 30% would sell both of them, and just 7% would keep both and let them go for free next year. And I think that 7% agree that the quadruple would be on if we did that.
It would be a fascinating season if we had Nunez, Mane, and the entire forward group kind of coming back. It'd be very interesting. Well, we've mentioned his name a lot, Darwin Nunez. We're expecting an official announcement in the coming days, so subscribe to the channel, turn on the notifications, and we'll let you know when the official word is out that Darwin Nunez is a Liverpool player. A lot of transfer analysis, a lot of discussions in the coming weeks to come. Nowhere near the end of this summer. There's going to be a lot of changing before the first kind of formal match with the Community Shield at the end of July. But that does it for today's stream. I've been Jack, joined today by Louis, Jay, and Anthony. Make sure you subscribe. You like today's video, and check out all our content in the weeks to come. But for now, have a good rest of your day. This has been a stream from the LFC Transfer Room. Take care.